Hello and welcome. That was loud. Whoa, okay, I'm sorry. Hello and welcome to my very first video on YouTube. I am very excited. I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in the month of January. There's a lot. I had a lot of free time. It is currently February 14th as of filming this, and it's very late that I'm filming this because we just finished moving. We're still unpacking and getting everything situated with the house, but I'm at least settled as far as my office. So without further ado, let's get into this because there's a lot. I read 37 books in the month of January. 6 of them, granted, are novellas, short stories, comics. So 31 books if you want to be technical, but Goodreads and Storygraph counts those as books. So I am as well, just to bring my number up. So 37. Let's get started. The first 6 are book club books that I'm in 6 book clubs. They're all content creators so that lead these. So I will have links down below in the description of where you can find these book clubs if you want to participate in them. I highly recommend it. I follow and watch all of the content for these content creators, and I love them very much. So let's get started. Again, so the first book is A Broken Blade by Melissa Blair. This is the first book in the Halfling saga, and I gave it 5 stars. I was actually quite surprised at how much I loved this book. It's got elves. She's an assassin fighter. It was great. The romance is good too. I'm always a sucker for romance, and I cannot wait for the second book to come out in May later this later this year. Moving on. Second book I read was Empire of Sand by Tasha Suri. This is the first book in the Books of Amba duology series. I gave it 4 stars. I enjoyed this book a lot. It's got a very interesting magic system. The story and plot line is very well thought out. I feel like she gives a little bit too much descriptive. She tends to draw out certain aspects of the book for me, which is why I didn't rate it like a perfect 5 stars, but I think it's a great book. And I even read the second book, Realm of Ash. It's kind of like a follow-up to it. It takes place, I believe, it's been so long since I read it. I think it takes place like 10 years after the first book, and it follows the main character's younger sister in this from the first book. But it's great. I enjoyed that one as well. 4 stars. Going back to book club books, I read Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. 5 stars. Loved it. I love me. Like, it had very cozy vibes. It's funny. The main male protagonist, who follows along with our MC Elizabeth, is just hilarious. And I love Silas. I gave this 5 stars. It's a great book. And then following up with that, I read The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, the first in the Poppy War series. I will be planning on reading more of these. I am in the middle of a bajillion series, so it's like I've got to like jump around, but that's fine. I consider it like very similar to as if like I'm reading these as they're coming out, so whatever. I gave it 4 stars. Liked it. It very much gives academia vibes. I wouldn't consider it dark academia personally, but it very much gives academia vibes. Loved it. And then I'm in a book club that likes to read like very smutty books, which I don't mind, but I don't know if this will be for everyone. I read 3 Swedish Mountain Men by Lily Gold. I loved it. 5 stars. I'm a sucker for a reverse harem. Who isn't? I enjoyed it. I don't know what else I can say about that. And then the last book club book that I read, this book, oh boy. American Psycho by Easton Brett Ellis. I don't know how to feel about this book. It is a book that made me very uncomfortable. Like, I don't shy away from horror or gore or anything, but there's just something about the way that Mr. Ellis writes in this just made me super uncomfortable. I gave it 3 stars, but that's just because, like, I didn't know how to feel about this book. It's very well written. Like, it's easy to follow along. It drags on in certain spots, but that's just because it follows along with the mental state of the main character. So I gave it 3 stars just because of, like, I don't know what to rate this, but I'm going to give it a rating, so somewhere in the middle, 3 stars. Moving on. I've never watched the movie. I don't plan on watching the movie after reading this book, which is very sad, because I like the actor very much that is it, but it's just, this book made me uncomfortable. I'm moving on. The next book I read, moving on from book club books, so that's the end of book club books. I read an Enchantment of Ravens, also by Margaret Rogerson. This one I enjoyed, but not nearly as much as Sorcery of Thorns, and I think that seems to be the general, like, consensus. I think some people, from what I've heard, some people really like certain books by her and then more than other books. For me, this one very much, like, glossed over, like, Fae lore. I think she was like, everyone knows about Fae lore, I'm not going to go into it too deep, and I'm just going to get into it. But I kind of like that about Fae, just, like, because everyone's got, like, a very certain take on them. Like, they kind of tweak it to suit their needs. But I thought the romance in it was very cute. I enjoyed it. I plan on reading more of her books. I think Vespertine. I plan on reading more of that. I don't know when, but I do plan on reading more of her books. And then I read I listened to the Mystery Night, which is the 3rd story in the Tales of Dunk and Egg, which is kind of like in the prequel universe of the Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. I enjoyed it. 4 stars. Was it fantabulous? No, but I enjoyed it all the same. And then I read books number 2 and number 3 of the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher, Full Moon and Grave Peril. Full Moon I gave 3.5 stars, rounded up to 4. Grave Peril, 4 stars. It was mentioned in the audiobook when I was listening to it that book 3, Grave Peril, is where the series starts to ramp up and get better, and I kind of agree with that. So I'm quite pleased with where the story is going, and I plan on reading more of it eventually. Going into a classic book, The Great Gatsby by Scott F. Fitzgerald. I gave it 3 stars. Me and classics sometimes don't get along very well. Like, I'll enjoy the story, but I get very hooked up on the language, and it kind of deters my enjoyment of a classic book. This was well done, but again, the language and the writing style was just not for me. So 3 stars. And then I read also my very first Brandon Sanderson novel, Elantris. Now, why did I start with Elantris and not something like Mistborn or Warbreaker, I think is another one? He's got a crap ton of books, and I wanted to dive into the Cosmere universe in publication order, because I felt like, for me personally, because he's got so many books, I didn't want to go into a book later in his career where he's, like, really honed in on his writing style and technique, and then jump back to an older book of his and just not enjoy it as much because of he's not writing as well as he is nowadays. So I enjoyed this a lot. I gave it 4 stars. I thought that the world building and the magic system was very well thought out and unique, as I hear all of his books are, and I can't wait to read more. But following up with that, I did also read his short story novella, Hope of Elantris. You can find it on his website for free, and I gave it 4 stars. It basically touches upon a scene in Elantris where there's a lot going on, but it's from a different perspective, so you can kind of just get some more backstory of like what was going on during that time, because it's kind of very vague in the book of like what these other characters were doing during that time. Going on with another classic book, I read Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne. 3 stars. Again, great story. I got hooked up on the language and the writing style, and it was okay. It was okay. And then I finished at least the first series, Percy Jackson and the Olympians. I finished reading books 4 and book 5, The Battle of the Labyrinth and The Last Olympian. I had these on hand, and I was like, I need to finish these. I gave the 4th book 4 stars, and then the 5th book 4.5 stars. I don't currently plan on reading any more of his series in that universe. I think, like, there's like The Son of Apollo. Someday I might, but like there's my TBR of like books I want to read on Goodreads is ridiculous, and I enjoyed Rick Riordan, but not enjoyed him enough to want to continue with the universe as of right now. So soft DNF, but not a hard DNF, but a soft DNF of the Percy Jackson universe. And then I read a classic book that I'm actually personally very surprised at how much I enjoyed. I read The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, gave it 4 stars. I've seen a movie of it. I can't remember the actor's name, and I'm going to kick myself for not remembering the actor's name. I'm going to put a picture and his name somewhere here. I watched that before reading this book, and while the timelines are very different because the book definitely takes place in, like London, I think in the early 1900s, 1800s. It's been a while since I've read the book. But while the time periods were very different, because I watched the movie, I could see the parallels very well, and I could imagine things, so I didn't get as caught up on the language as much as I normally do with classic books. So I enjoyed it. 4 stars. Moving on to a book I very much love, and a series I very much plan on continuing as soon as possible. I've just got like a lot of books on my physical TBR on my Kindle that I need to finish, and a lot of books that are coming in on loan from the library that I'm also like, I gotta read these. I gotta read these. Is The Watchmaker's Daughter by C.J. Archer, and it's the first book in the Glass and Steel series. Loved it. 5 stars. I don't know how to describe it. It's just wonderful. It's got a wonderful main character and male protagonist duo. I love their dynamic and the romance. The romance happens like kind of later on, so the first book is kind of a slow burn, but I very much like enjoyed the progression of it. And I don't normally like slow burn books, but I very much enjoyed their journey together and getting to know each other and falling in love. And I cannot wait to see what happens to them in the later books. And then getting into some very smutty authors. I'm going to start with Katie Robert. I read Neon Gods and Stoneheart, which are the prequel. Well, Stoneheart's the prequel, and then Neon Gods is the first book in the Dark Olympus series. I loved Neon Gods, but I'm also a sucker for Hades and Persephone retellings. Gave that one 5 stars. Stoneheart, which is a novella, gave it 4 stars. It's a very cute, sapphic, smutty book. Can't wait to read the rest of them, because I know that, I think Radiant Sin, is the name of it. Number 4 just came out, so I need to eventually catch up on that. And then moving on to another author, Scarlett St. Clair. I read 4 books of hers. 4 books of hers. She writes very well. Another Hades and Persephone retelling. I read A Touch of Darkness, 5 stars. It's the first book in a series. And then I read A Game of Fate, which is basically the same book, but from Hades' perspective. I gave 4 stars because it was a bit too much like A Touch of Darkness. But there was enough differences that because it's from Hades' perspective that I enjoyed it. And then I read A Touch of Ruin by Scarlett St. Clair, which is the second book in the Hades and Persephone, the one from Persephone's perspective. I gave this one 3 stars. Like, I enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy it nearly as much as the first book because I thought that Persephone and Hades a little bit, they were just being stupid. Like, can you just talk to each other? And then Persephone was also, I feel like, just being very naive and young, and I get that that's supposed to be, like, her perspective and where she is currently, and this is more about her growth and the growth of them as a couple together, but it annoyed the crap out of me. It just annoyed me. And then also a book by Scarlett St. Clair, but not a Hades Persephone retelling. I read King of Battle and Blood, which is the first book in the Adrian Isolde series. I loved it. 5 stars. I've got the second book currently on hold from the library, so I cannot wait to read that. I'm so excited. I need to know more. I'm a sucker for vampires too. So, moving on. I read a book called The Daughters of Izdihar by Hadir Elsby. I really hope that's how you say your name. I'm so sorry if that's not. It is the first book in the Alamaxa duology. Gave it 4 stars. It very much gives the vibe of Avatar: The Last Airbender with the magic system where people can bend elements, and typically people only bend one element. And it takes place in the Middle East region. It gave me very much Arabic Indian vibes. I'm terrible at geography, so my apologies if that's not exactly where it's supposed to take place, but that's the vibe that I personally got. I enjoyed it. I can't wait for the next book. I don't remember when the next book comes out. I might put it up here. Who knows? Then another book that's brand new that came out this year, Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries by Heather Fawcett. It's another first book in the series, I believe. It very much to me gave the vibes that it could end right there, but like it's labeled on Goodreads as book 1, so she's probably gonna continue it. I thought it was good. I thought it was okay. I gave it 3 stars. It's very much in a writing style that I don't personally vibe with, which is the main character and the book is written in journal format, so it's very much like you get caught up on events, which isn't personally my cup of tea, but I thought it was a very cozy read. And then moving on, I read a book that is probably going to be very surprising. That's like, why haven't you read this book before? I've been on a very long reading hiatus where I've just been mostly reading fan fiction for a couple of years, and now I'm catching back up. I read The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, which is, I loved it. 5 stars. I understand now why this book was so big back in the day, because I did hear about it, just didn't get into it. I've seen clips about it all over the place on YouTube, so I do know what happens in Catching Fire and the third book that is the name is escaping me. I do know what happens, but reading it was very enjoyable. I can't wait to read the second and third book. Maybe the prequel. I've heard the prequel is not nearly as good as people claim, so whatever. I might read it. And then getting into some novellas and comics by V.E. Schwab. I read some These are going to be prequels to the Shades of Magic and Villains series that she's got. So I've already read volume 1 of the Shades of Magic comics last year. But in the month of January, I read volumes 2 and volume 3, Knight of Knives and the Rebel Army, which is, as I said, prequels to the Shades of Magic universe. Very much enjoyed them. I'm wondering how they're going to tie in, because I think the books take place from a very much other perspective in another world. But can't wait to get into that. And then another novella that I read of hers, Warm Up, which is a prequel to her Villains series. Villains is on my list because it's part of my book club catch-up. I joined the book clubs that I mentioned earlier in this video very much later in their lifespan, so I'm trying to catch up on the books they've already read, and Villains is one of them. Can't wait. And then I also read my very first Leigh Bardugo book, Ninth House. 5 stars. Number 1 in the Alex Stern series. Why this is my first Leigh Bardugo book? Don't know. I do plan on reading Shadow and Bone, but later. I've got a big TBR. But I love this. I read Hellbent in February. I'll tell you more about that later. I love this. It's very dark academia. I didn't have any issues like understanding what was happening with the time jumps in Ninth House, because I'm used to reading a lot of like time travel style books. But I enjoyed it. And then I read The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, which is the prequel to The Lord of the Rings. I gave it 4 stars. It's cute. It's classic, but it's cute. Enjoyed it. I'm scared of the Fellowship of the Ring and the rest of the Lord of the Rings series because the language in those is very much... My husband just came home. But the language in the Fellowship of the Ring and the Lord of the Rings books is very much like very verbose. I remember DNFing the first book back in the day. Because he just goes on and on describing things. Whatever. But I plan on getting into that. I'm going to have an audiobooks to help me out with that. And then I've got 4 books left. I'm almost done, I promise. 2 new books that came out this year that I read. First one is The Keeper's 6 by Kate Elliott. 4 stars. Very cute. Loved it. It's got a very interesting, unique magic system, and it has dragons in it, which, who doesn't love dragons? But I will say, it was a little confusing at first because the author gives the dragons a made-up pronoun, made up here, but it's like they have their own pronoun. And at first when I'm reading it and seeing it over again, I was like, is this just like, did I get a bad book with a bunch of typos? And then eventually I got it. I was like, oh, they have their own pronouns that aren't he, she, they. And I was like, I got it. Okay, let's just go. So that was a little confusing because I think it's like quo, I can't remember. I'm sorry. But it was enjoyable. I loved it. I kind of wish there would be more books about this universe, but I think it's going to be a standalone, which is unfortunate because I would actually really like to know more about this universe. Then I read the Song of Silver, Flame Like Night by Amelie Wen Zhao. I hope that's how you say her name. My apologies if I mispronounced it. It's the first book in the Song of the Last Kingdom. I gave it 4 stars. I want to read more. I want to say it takes place in like ancient China because they mention the word qi a lot, but it's very loosely inspired on Chinese culture and magic with qi and stuff like that. So, but I enjoyed it. It's got a lot of everything. It's got romance, it's got revenge, it's got academia vibes. Not dark academia, but it's got academia vibes, and I can't wait to read more. Hi, dog. Hi, Zelda. And then I read the novella The Scepter by J. Bree. It's labeled as 0.1 in the Mortal Fates. Gave it 4 stars. I very much enjoyed this. I cannot wait to read the second prequel novella that comes out later this month in February. And then the first book comes out in March. And J. Bree, historically, from all of the books that I've read of hers, have been smutty. So far, this novella was not smutty, but I very much enjoyed it. Very much enjoyed the magic system and the world with like elves and witches and seers and everything like that. And I cannot wait to read more. And then to follow it up with the last book. We made it. Again, probably going to be very shocked that this is the very first book I've read of hers, and I'm only reading it now, but I read City of Bones by Cassandra Clare, which is the first in the Mortal Instruments. I gave it 4.5 stars, and I'm just as surprised as possibly you are at how much I enjoyed this. Like, I very much could see the parallels in the Harry Potter fan fiction. I could see it side by side, characters, but that still didn't stop my enjoyment of it, and I cannot wait to read more. And that's it. That's all of the books that I read in the month of January. Please leave me some feedback. If you want me to go into more depth about specific books, like give me more in-depth reviews, I try to just make this be very quick because there's so many. Please let me know in the comments. I plan on, my release schedule is going to be kind of a little chaotic. I'm going to be doing a lot of catch up for this month, for this year. So that way I can get back onto a normal schedule where I plan on releasing a video once a week every Wednesday. But I want to catch up on the fact that I started doing this so late in the year for January and February. Like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. Bye.